No one in the small Appalachian town of Sutton, West Virginia, could explain what they saw that night. It began with a light, not the kind that flickers like a faulty street lamp, nor the distant blink of an airplane crossing the sky. This light was alive, hovering, pulsing, watching. At exactly 7:15 p.m. on November 12, 1952, two brothers, Edward and Fred May, were walking home after a long day of work. The air was cold, carrying the early whispers of winter. As they crossed a quiet field near the edge of town, Edward suddenly stopped. "Do you see that?" he whispered. Fred followed his gaze. There, above the tree line, hung a glowing orb, bright orange, almost breathing. It hovered silently for a moment, then dropped. Not like a falling star, not like anything they had ever seen. It descended with purpose. The brothers stood frozen as the object dipped behind the hills, disappearing into the dense forest beyond. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then the ground trembled, not violently, but enough to feel it beneath their boots. Something had landed. Within minutes, the news spread through Sutton like wildfire. A group of locals gathered, armed with flashlights and curiosity stronger than fear. Among them was Kathleen May, the boy's mother, along with a few neighbors. They formed a small search party heading toward the forest where the object had vanished. The deeper they walked, the quieter it became. No crickets, no wind, just an unnatural stillness that pressed against their ears. About a mile into the woods, they smelled it, a sharp metallic odor, like burnt wires mixed with something rotten. "Do you smell that?" one of the men muttered. Before anyone could answer, a beam of light cut through the darkness. Someone's flashlight had landed on it. At first, it looked like a large rock, but then it moved. The creature rose slowly. It was tall, at least 10 feet, its body massive, yet oddly smooth. Its skin appeared metallic, reflecting the faint light in dull, shifting tones. Where its face should have been, there was something else. A round, glowing surface, like a head without features, except for 2 small points of light. Eyes, maybe, that burned faintly in the darkness. No mouth, no nose, just silence. And then it hissed. The group panicked. Some screamed, others ran. A few were too terrified to move. The creature took a step forward, not walking, gliding almost. As it advanced, a strange gas filled the air. The metallic smell intensified, burning their noses and throats. People began coughing, their eyes watering uncontrollably. "Run!" someone shouted. And they did. By the time they reached the edge of the forest, several of them were sick, nauseous, dizzy, disoriented. Kathleen May later described the creature as something not of this earth. The sheriff dismissed it as hysteria. The newspapers called it mass panic, but the military stayed quiet. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen in Sutton. Livestock refused to go near the forest. Dogs barked endlessly at the hills, and some of those who had seen the creature claimed they could still smell it, even when they were miles away. Years passed. The story faded into legend. But in 1979, a retired military officer came forward with a statement that reignited everything. He claimed that what landed that night was not a meteor, not a hoax, but a classified experiment gone wrong, a test of something never meant to be seen. Yet there was one detail he couldn't explain. No records, no files, no proof. as if whatever it was had been erased. Even today, the people of Sutton remember that night. Some refuse to talk about it. Others swear they still see lights in the sky, hovering above the same forest, waiting, watching. And every November, at exactly 7:15 p.m., the air grows still, the forest goes silent, and sometimes, just sometimes, a faint orange glow appears above the trees. By the winter of 1953, Sutton had changed. Not visibly, not in a way an outsider could easily notice. The same narrow roads curved through the hills. The same wooden houses stood stubbornly against the cold winds. But something beneath the surface had shifted. People spoke less, especially about that night. Kathleen May was one of the few who refused to stay silent. Weeks after the encounter, she began keeping a journal. At first, it was simple: dates, observations, reminders. But soon, the entries changed. They became warnings. December 3rd, 1952. The smell came back tonight. Not strong, just enough to notice. I checked the windows. Everything was closed. It shouldn't be inside. December 9th, 1952. I woke up at 3:17 a.m. The house was quiet, too quiet. Even the clock had stopped. Then I heard it, a faint hissing sound, coming from outside. Her son, Edward, noticed the changes first. His mother barely slept. She would sit by the window for hours, staring into the darkness beyond the trees. One night he finally asked, "Mum, what are you looking for?" Kathleen didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "It's not what I'm looking for, it's what's looking at us." Around the same time, reports began surfacing across nearby towns. Strange lights, animals behaving erratically, unexplained illnesses. But none of it made the papers. Instead, something else arrived. Men in suits. They came quietly, without announcement. Black cars rolling into town before sunrise. No markings, no explanations. They spoke to the sheriff first, then to the witnesses, one by one. Edward remembered the day they came to his house. Two men, clean-cut, expressionless. They didn't introduce themselves, didn't show badges. They simply asked questions. What did you see? How close were you? Did it touch you? Kathleen answered carefully, but when they asked about the smell, she hesitated, just for a second, and they noticed. The taller man leaned forward. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "it's important you tell us everything." Kathleen met his eyes, and for the first time since that night, she lied. "No," she said, "I haven't smelled anything since." The men exchanged a glance, then stood up. "Thank you for your time." And just like that, they left. That night, Kathleen wrote another entry. January 14th, 1953. They know. I saw it in their eyes. They're not here to help. They're here to hide it. Days later, Edward made a discovery that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Behind their house, just beyond the tree line, there was a patch of ground that never froze. Even in the coldest weeks of winter, snow avoided it. Grass wouldn't grow. The earth there was wrong. One afternoon, driven by curiosity and fear, Edward grabbed a shovel. He told no one, not even his brother. The ground was soft, too soft. After only a few inches, the soil changed color, dark, almost black. And then he hit something. Not rock, not metal, something smooth. Warm. Edward froze, his hands trembling. Slowly he brushed away the dirt, and what he saw didn't make sense. It was curved, like part of a sphere. Dull grey, almost metallic. But not quite. It pulsed faintly, as if it were breathing. Suddenly, the air shifted. That same smell, sharp, burning, unmistakable. Edward stumbled back, coughing. The object beneath the ground moved, just slightly. But enough. He ran. That night he told Kathleen everything, every detail, every second. She didn't look surprised, not even a little. Instead, she stood up, walked to the window, and pulled the curtains closed. "We don't talk about this again," she said. Her voice was firm, final. "But, Edward," she turned to him, and in her eyes there was something he had never seen before. Not fear, something deeper, understanding. They're still here. The next morning, the black cars returned. But this time, they didn't knock. Neighbors later said they saw men moving through the woods behind the May house, carrying equipment, wearing masks. By evening, the patch of ground was gone, covered, erased, as if it had never existed. And Edward, he was different after that, quieter, withdrawn. Years later, he would describe the moment he touched the ground above that object. "It wasn't just warm," he said. "It felt like something on the other side knew I was there." But the strangest part, he never told anyone what he saw next. Not even his own family. Because just before he ran, just before the smell returned, he heard something. A voice. Not in his ears, in his head. One word. Stay. And for a split second, he almost did. Edward didn't tell anyone about the voice. Not his brother, not his friends, not even Kathleen. Because deep down, he wasn't sure if it was real, or worse, if it was still there. The days that followed became a blur. The men in suits never returned. The forest behind their house went back to normal. Snow covered everything. And the town slowly convinced itself nothing had ever happened. But Edward knew better, because something had changed inside him. It started small, a sound, not constant, just occasional, a faint ringing in his ears, like distant static. At first he ignored it, blamed it on stress, on fear, on imagination. But then the dreams began. He was standing in the forest, alone. The trees stretched endlessly around him, taller, darker than before. The air was thick, heavy, and silent. Then he saw it, not far away, watching. The creature, except it was different, closer, clearer. Its surface wasn't just metallic, it was shifting, like liquid metal, moving beneath its own skin. And its face, that glowing, featureless surface, was no longer blank. Shapes moved within it, faint outlines, almost like expressions trying to form. Edward tried to run, but his body wouldn't move. And then the voice returned. "You saw." The words echoed inside his mind, not loud, but impossible to ignore. I didn't," he tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't open. The creature moved closer, gliding, silent. "You stayed." "I ran," he thought desperately. "I ran." For a moment, everything stopped. The forest, the creature, the air itself. Then, not long enough, Edward woke up screaming. By early 1954, the town of Sutton had another problem. People were getting sick. Not everyone, not all at once, but enough to notice. Headaches, nausea, dizziness. Doctors couldn't explain it. Tests showed nothing unusual. No infections, no toxins. But the symptoms felt familiar. The same ones reported. The night of the encounter. Kathleen noticed it too, especially in Edward. He barely ate, barely slept, and sometimes he would just stop, mid-sentence, as if listening to something no one else could hear. One evening, she found him standing outside, at the edge of the forest, barefoot, in the snow. Edward. He didn't respond. She ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Edward, what are you doing?" Slowly he turned his head, but his eyes, they weren't focused on her. "They're calling," he whispered. Kathleen felt a chill run through her entire body. "Who?" she asked. Edward smiled, not normally, not like himself. A slow, unnatural smile. The ones under. That was the moment she realized this wasn't over, not even close. The next day, Kathleen made a decision, one she had been avoiding for months. She went to the sheriff. But instead of dismissing her, he listened, because he had seen something too. Not in the forest, not that night, but a week later, driving home, late, the road empty, the sky clear, and then something passed overhead. Silent, massive, blocking out the stars. It wasn't a plane, he told her. Planes make noise. Kathleen leaned forward. What did it look like? The sheriff hesitated, then said something that would stay with her forever. It looked like it was looking back. That same afternoon, they returned to the forest, together. No search party, no flashlights, just the two of them. The air felt wrong again, heavy, still. And then they found it. Not the same spot Edward had dug. Not exactly, but close, too close. A depression in the ground, perfectly circular, as if something large had once rested there. Kathleen stepped closer, her heart racing, and then she smelled it. That same metallic stench, stronger than ever. The sheriff covered his nose. "You smell that too?" She nodded. But Edward, he stepped forward, drawn. "Edward, stop!" Kathleen shouted, but he didn't listen. He knelt down, placed his hand on the ground, and instantly everything changed. The air vibrated. The trees trembled, and beneath the earth something answered. A low, deep, impossible sound. Not heard. Felt. The sheriff stumbled back. "What the hell is that?" But Edward, he was smiling again, and this time he spoke, not in his own voice. They remember. The ground cracked, just slightly, enough to reveal something beneath. Not fully visible, not clear, but enough to know it was still there, waiting, watching. And now, awake, the ground didn't just crack. It breathed. Kathleen stumbled backward, her chest tightening as the earth beneath Edward's hand pulsed like something alive. The sheriff reached for his gun. Instinct, not logic. But his hands were shaking too much to aim. "Edward, move!" he shouted. But Edward didn't move. He knelt there, perfectly still, his palm pressed against the exposed soil, as if he were listening through it. And then he spoke again. They were waiting. The voice wasn't his. Not entirely. It carried something underneath, something layered, like multiple voices trying to speak through one mouth. The sheriff took a step back. "This isn't right," he muttered. Kathleen's instincts screamed at her. She rushed forward, grabbing Edward's arm, trying to pull him away. And the moment she touched him, she saw it, not with her eyes, with her mind. Darkness, endless, cold beyond anything she had ever felt. And beneath it, structures, massive, impossible, stretching far below the forest, far below the town, far deeper than anything man had ever built. Tunnels, chambers, something ancient. And inside them, movement. Not one, not two, many. Watching, waiting. Kathleen gasped, ripping her hand away as if burned. She collapsed onto the ground, her breath gone. "There, underground," she whispered. The sheriff froze. "What?" But before she could answer, the forest erupted. Birds exploded from the trees. The wind came back all at once. Branches snapped. Leaves tore through the air. And from beneath the ground, a sound. Not just vibration this time. Not just pressure. A signal. A call. Edward stood up, slowly, deliberately, and turned toward them. His eyes, they weren't the same. The pupils had dilated, swallowing the color, leaving only darkness. "They're waking up," he said calmly. Kathleen shook her head. "No, no, no. Edward, listen to me. We have to go." But he smiled. That same unnatural smile. "They've been here longer than us." "What are you talking about?" Edward tilted his head slightly. "As long as the ground has been here, so have they." And then the sky changed, without warning, without sound. The light faded, not like sunset, not gradually, instantly, as if something above them had blocked the sun. All three looked up, and for a moment, no one breathed, because what hung above the forest was not a cloud. It was massive, silent, impossible to fully see, a shape, a presence, and it was watching. The sheriff dropped his gun. Kathleen grabbed Edward, desperate now. "We need to leave, now." But Edward didn't resist. This time, he followed. As they ran through the forest, the ground beneath them trembled again, stronger now. Cracks spread through the soil like veins. Something was rising, not breaking through, not yet, but close, too close. By the time they reached the road, the sky had returned to normal. The light came back. The wind died down. Everything stopped, as if nothing had happened. The sheriff stood there, breathing heavily. What the hell did we just see? But Kathleen wasn't listening. She was staring at Edward, because he had stopped again, right in the middle of the road, looking back at the forest. "They're not hiding anymore," he said softly. That night, the black cars returned. But this time, they weren't quiet. Engines roared, doors slammed, men shouted orders. The entire area was sealed off. Military trucks, floodlights, barriers, and something else. Machines, large, industrial, brought in under heavy guard. The sheriff watched from a distance. "They're digging," he said. Kathleen felt her stomach drop. They know. For 3 days the digging continued, day and night. No stops, no explanations. And then, on the 4th night, everything went wrong. A sound echoed through Sutton, deep, violent, like the earth itself had screamed. Windows shattered, lights flickered. People woke in panic, and from the forest, a glow, orange, the same glow from the night it all began. Kathleen ran outside. The sheriff was already there. And Edward, he was gone. No note, no trace, just gone. But in the distance, beyond the trees, something moved. Not in the sky, on the ground. Massive, slow, and heading. Away, toward the hills. The sheriff grabbed his radio, shouting for backup. But Kathleen, she already knew. They took him, she whispered. The sheriff turned. Who? Kathleen's eyes filled with something worse than fear. Acceptance, not them. She looked toward the forest, the ones below, and far beyond the trees, that orange glow pulsed once more, like a heartbeat. Edward was gone. No footprints, no struggle, no sign that he had even left on his own. Just absence, the kind that feels wrong. Kathleen didn't cry, not at first. She stood there in the cold, staring at the forest, as if waiting for him to walk back out. But deep down, she already knew. He didn't leave, she whispered. The sheriff looked at her. What do you mean? Kathleen's voice was hollow now. They called him. Behind them, the forest burned with that same unnatural orange glow. But something was different this time. It wasn't just light. It was movement. Shapes. Huge. Slow. Just beyond the trees. The military had already surrounded the area. Floodlights cut through the darkness. Men shouted orders. Machines roared louder than ever before. They're trying to contain it, the sheriff said. Kathleen shook her head. No. Her eyes never left the forest. They're too late. At dawn, the digging stopped. Not because they finished, because they found something. The sheriff was there when it happened. Close enough to see. Close enough to regret it for the rest of his life. One of the machines hit a hollow pocket beneath the earth. The ground collapsed inward, revealing a massive opening. Not a cave. Something structured. Smooth walls. Perfect curves. Not made by nature. Not made by humans. The air that rushed out was warm and carried that same metallic smell. Stronger than ever, men in protective suits were sent down first. They never came back. Not alive. Their radios picked up only one thing before going silent. A voice, not human, not understandable. But clear in one way, it was responding. By noon, the entire site was shut down. Orders came from somewhere higher, higher than the sheriff, higher than anyone in Sutton. Seal it, bury it, erase it, and that's exactly what they did. The hole was filled, concrete poured, layers of earth forced back into place. By nightfall, it was gone, as if it had never existed. The official story? A gas pocket, a natural disturbance, nothing more. People were told to forget, and most of them did, but not Kathleen. Weeks passed, then months. Edward never returned. No body, no trace, nothing. But sometimes, late at night, Kathleen would hear something from beneath the house. A faint, almost impossible sound. Like breathing. One night she followed it. Down into the basement. The air was cold, still. But the sound was there, stronger now, coming from beneath the floor. Her hands trembled as she knelt down, and slowly, She placed her palm against the ground. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the warmth returned, and her mind opened. Darkness, endless, the same tunnels, the same structures.
But now, she saw clearly, they weren't hiding, they were waiting. And in the distance, she saw him, Edward, standing among them, still, silent, changed. His eyes lifted, looking directly at her, even across that impossible distance, and then he smiled, not in fear, not in pain, in understanding, and once again she heard the voice. Not one, many. He belongs now. Kathleen gasped, pulling her hand away. The vision vanished instantly. The basement returned, silent, empty. But she knew the truth now, a truth no one would ever believe. They hadn't come from the sky. They had always been here beneath, waiting, watching. Years later, Sutton returned to normal. New families moved in, children played in the fields. The forest stood quiet once again. But every November, at exactly 7:15 p.m., something still happens. The air grows heavy, the wind dies, and the forest goes silent. And if you're standing very still, if you're listening closely, you might hear it, not from above, but from below. A faint, endless breathing. And sometimes, just sometimes, a soft voice follows, not loud, not threatening, almost gentle. Stay. And for a moment, you might feel it, the urge to listen, to step forward, to disappear, just like Edward did. The end.